Welcome to lesson 4. So this lesson is going to look at common problems and mishaps that happen during the toilet training process. So we're going to be looking at what we can do to solve common things that might happen when the puppy is nearly toilet trained but they're not quite there and they're just missing something. So one of these problems that owners might find is that the puppy's got a very specific type of texture that they want to go on. So they're only going in one particular place or on one particular surface, and it's making it difficult to toilet train the puppy. So again, this might be found a preference of the breeders, so they might prefer to go on carpet because they're around lots of kind of soiled mats and things that were soft, and the puppy learns that that's the only thing that's appropriate to toilet on and they can't toilet on anything else. A bit like us thinking that we should go to toilet on a toilet and not anywhere else as well. So that's what happens with puppies. They can get very fixed preference in their mind. Puppies tend to prefer to toilet on grass, so somewhere soft. If you've got any preference, it tends to be the grass. And what you might find is people that have got maybe a courtyard or somewhere where they don't have any grass have a bit of a problem because the puppy's refusing to go there but preferring to go on the carpet or something, or a mat or something that's inside that's a little bit softer. So what you want to do in this situation is you want to make sure that the puppies have got access to the appropriate surface. So it might be looking at what you've got. So you might want to provide some sort of grassy area for them, or you might want to take them to a grassy area if you know that's what they prefer. And you want to try and make sure that they don't have access to the areas that they do have, if there's an area that they keep going to, but they also can toilet outside on grass as well. If they are fixated on toilet on pads or newspaper, so you get some puppies that like to toilet on there and they don't quite extend this preference to outside because it feels a little bit different to them, what you could do is start to move it towards the door. So gradually move it so it's closer to the door that you want the puppy to go out of. And then what you can start doing is moving it outside. So you can take it outside when the puppy needs to go to the toilet. So they start to learn the association of toileting when they're in the outside environment and start to cut that pad down a little bit. So start to cut it down to size so that the puppy is going to the toilet on there. Another problem that people might find is that the puppy toilets indoors even when they've got access to the outdoors. So even though the puppy has got a door open, they still toilet inside. And owners tend to get very frustrated with this because they think that they're being really kind by leaving the puppy to have access to outside. And it's very frustrating when they're cold or they're having something that's, not always what they want, that the puppy is still toileting inside. So this happens a lot in summer puppies. So when you've got a puppy and it's a nice day and the doors are always open, the puppy doesn't actually learn to differentiate between inside and outside. So what they just learn is that when they need to go to the toilet, there's not really a difference. They haven't learned to go to that particular area. You also find puppies that are carried to the door don't always learn to make their way to the door. So you might find if owners have got small dogs or they're very quick to get on top of their puppy and they pick them up, the puppy learns that they need to go outside, but actually they don't know how to get there because they don't walk themselves there, so they tend to just go where they are. And again, owners get frustrated because they think, well, the puppy could have just walked outside, and they don't always make that connection. So what's really important in this situation is that the puppy has got to be taught to walk outside, so the owners have got to just try and encourage them along rather than always just pick them up and plonk them out, because they need to learn part of that process as well. Owners should also start shutting the door. So if the door has always been open, they need to start shutting it so the puppy learns that actually sometimes they need to go outside and wait for the door to be open, and they start to learn a bit more bladder control. One other problem you can get with these puppies is that they just don't learn to hold their bladder as well because they've always got that access to outside. So they just start to go whenever they need to, and they don't learn that they've got to hold it before they're allowed to go out. So again, this can be increased by just shutting the door, just for really short periods, just so the puppy starts to learn that they've got to wait for the owner to be able to let them out. Some puppies don't always let their owners know that they need to go, and this is quite common, and I get this with a lot of owners as well, and they say they just don't tell me, they won't scratch at the door, they won't bark, so they keep going to the toilet right by the door and doing puddle there. And if that happens, I tend to say that your toilet process is going well, but you're just missing that one little link that they're starting to learn to not let you go. So some puppies go because the owners don't have a view of the back door. So it might be that the door's around a corner, so they don't always see that the puppy's going towards the back door, or it might be that they're just in a really big open plan house and they don't always have a view or sort of supervision of that puppy. So what owners can do is just try and make sure they're supervising their puppy quite well and they're watching when they need to go, so they can see that they need to go to that door. One way that you can do this is by teaching a puppy to ring a bell to go out to the toilet. This is quite a nice bit of training that you can do. What you need to do is get a bell that you can get particularly for this purpose. So you can get different ones, but the best ones are the ones that are on a kind of, they're hanging down from a string, so it's easy for the puppy to knock, rather than a bell that's like a bell that they have to ding. I actually have some bells that sort of jingle when the puppy goes near them. What you'd want to do in this process is make sure first the puppy's not scared of them. So you'd want to make the bells really quietly make a sound, maybe muffle them, and then feed the puppy a treat so they start to learn that that sound is not anything to be worried about. What you then want to do is try and encourage the puppy to ring the bells themselves. So you might want to just put a treat underneath the bells so they start to paw at them, or you can lure them with the treat, or you can just do anything so the puppy goes towards them. And when they ring them, you want to reward them straight away. So they start to learn that ringing those bells means they get a treat. Obviously, the ultimate aim is that they don't get a treat when they ring the bells, they go outside, but that's going to be a reward in itself, so we're going to come to that. So once they're starting to ring those bells, what you start doing is when you reward them, you need to throw it out of the door. So you start to teach them that they ring that bell, the door opens and they go out to get the treat. So what they're learning there is that ringing that bell opens that back door. Once they're starting to get that really well, what you can do is you can then teach the puppy that when they ring the bell, they get to go outside, and trying to get them to ring it whenever they do want to go outside. Because puppies don't always want to go out just to go to the toilet. They do sometimes just want to go out to have a play, to go in the garden, to go out for a walk. So you can start encouraging them that when you want to go have that access, you need to ring this bell first. What you just need to be careful of is that if the puppy's still learning to hold their bladder, that you don't wait for too long making them ring the bell or waiting for them to ring the bell and then they toilet because they can't hold it. So you have to have a little bit of mindfulness about this and not be kind of demanding that they do it. It might take a little bit of time, so it can take sort of 2 to 4 weeks, probably about 4 weeks for a puppy. So it's a bit of a process, but if you've got a puppy that doesn't bark and you don't want them scratching at the door and you don't want them barking and you don't want to reinforce that behaviour, but the ringing of the bells will help, then that can help. I've got a client that recently did it. They've got a 2-year-old cockapoo and it took them about 2 weeks to get it started and then 4 weeks for it to be him ringing the bell when she was out of sight. So I'd give that as a nice time frame for them to be able to do it. So another problem that owners can have is that their puppy is toilet trained, but they tend to go backwards. So they might find that their puppy seems to be fully all okay, and then what happens is they start to have accidents in the house, which owners can find really frustrating because they might find that they think that their puppy is regressed, or they're not learning it, or it might just be the puppy's got a little bit older and they think they should know. So the first thing to rule out is that there's not a medical cause for this. So if a puppy has started to go to the toilet more frequently than they normally have, they need to go to the vets and check that it's not an infection or an upset tummy or something that's causing the puppy that means that they need to go and they're not able to hold it. So that's the first thing that they need to do. What they can also do is look at their routine. So it might be that they've changed their routine with their puppy. So some owners, when they get a puppy, they go to work and what they start to do is they change how long the puppy's being left for, but they don't realise that that's going to have an effect on how often the puppy's able to go to the toilet. So if they find that they look at their routine and they're just leaving their puppy a bit longer, or they've started to go back to work, or something's happened that means the puppy's not able to go outside, that might lead to the puppy needing to have accidents in the house. They might also get more lax with the toilet training. So what sometimes happens is that owners think their puppy has got it and then so leaves the puppy to their own devices more, and actually what happens is the puppy is still just missing that tiny little bit that they need to learn to hold it to go outside. So in that case, owners just need to go back to basics, go back to the beginning and make sure they're getting their puppy out when they need to get them out to the toilet, and they're not relying on the puppy to tell them or relying on the puppy to be fully house trained before they're ready. Another thing that might happen is the puppy hits adolescence. So when they hit adolescence, male puppies can get testosterone and that causes them to start marking. So they might start to mark different areas in the house, or they might go, if they're taken somewhere new, they might mark, whereas previously they hadn't done. So that's more of a time issue, and that's looking at kind of the age of the puppy. Females in season might mark a little bit more as well. So for females in season, that might affect their toilet training. It doesn't mean their toilet training is incomplete, it just means that it's being affected by adolescence. So another problem they get is sometimes the puppy always runs off to the same place. So they've found a preferred place in the house that the puppy keeps going to, which means that they're not fully house trained because they keep going over there. So this might be a particular room that it might be nice and private for the puppy. It might have a surface that they like. It might be giving them somewhere to go that's a bit more private. Or again, it might be if the puppy's been punished for going to the toilet in front of the owners. This can become quite a habit, so they can get quite fixed in this and they have a particular space that they want to go to. So it can be quite frustrating for owners if they don't realise the puppy's doing it and they're finding the puppy's had an accident after the event's occurred. So what owners really need to make sure with this is they need to try and block access to that area, and they need to really try and keep an eye on their puppy and make sure they're not running to that same place. So blocking access is probably the easiest thing, but sometimes it can be quite easy for puppies to slip through if it's not managed well. Owners could potentially put a house line on their puppy and just keep a really, really close eye on them. So they might want to spend a day or two making sure they're really observing their puppy well. So whenever their puppy does try to run to that area, they can really quickly lead them outside. And that might help to manage it, but also to sort of cement in the puppy's mind that they should be going outside and not in that area. They might need to block it for much longer than one day or two, so they might need to have it blocked for a little bit longer to make sure the puppy doesn't revert back to that habit. Sometimes owners complain that puppies are taken outside, but they go outside and they come in, they go to the toilet when they're in the house. So they're not going when they've got the opportunity. So if that happens with you, then what you want to look at is the puppy too distracted, or are they overwhelmed when they go outside? So sometimes they go out and they start playing around with leaves and they start picking things up, and they've got a short attention span, so they just forget that they went up to go to the toilet, and then they come back in where it's more boring, and then they go. Some puppies get quite overwhelmed, so there might be something that's overwhelming them that means that they're a bit worried about going to the toilet, and again, they're not concentrating and they tend to go when they feel nice and safe. What also happens is if they're left for too long outside. So I've got owners that say, oh, I leave my puppy outside for like 45 minutes and they still don't go, and then they come in when they go into the house. And what's happened there is the puppy's been taken out for too long, got too distracted, started doing something else, and then they've come to the house, realised they're not distracted, and then gone to the toilet there. Owners sometimes don't watch their puppy as well, so they might let their puppy out and be focused on something else, and actually a puppy doesn't go when they're outside. So owners need to make sure that they're watching their puppy and that they're making sure they are going to the toilet when they're outside, rather than playing around and then coming in and going to the toilet. So what owners can do, go outside with them for 5 to 10 minutes, make sure they're not outside for too long, make sure they actually watch their puppies and keep an eye on it. They can also manage it, so if they find that their puppy is getting distracted in a very big garden, they can put a lead on, or they can do some other management techniques as well. Some puppies don't like to toilet when they're out on a walk, and all that takes is just a bit of time, just to build their confidence and just to teach them that it's okay to toilet outside of the house environment. So it might be in shy puppies, or it might be in puppies that are very, very excited and get very, very distracted. But in that case, it will be giving them time, building their confidence, and just waiting for them to start to learn that's an appropriate place to go.